You'll have to forgive the slightly dodgy angle, team. I'm afraid something's going on with the lighting in this room and I have to sit right underneath the skylight, otherwise the camera goes mental. So here we are. It's September. August wasn't a great month in terms of stash busting. The only thing I could count off my tally was about 50 grams worth of ends that I used to make hexie puffs, and then I bought more yarn to finish my daisy blouse. And that is on the agenda for September, but I want to make a video dedicated to the daisy blouse because it's so intriguing, which means I need a full day to film. And today's not that day. As always, I have works in progress on the go that I could be working on, but this past few days in August, I've had the autumn feels. And normally I'm really excited for autumn. And this year we've had such a terrible summer. It's rained practically non-stop for 6 weeks. And I haven't had a great time for a variety of reasons personally, my health and things like that. So I just don't feel the cozy Halloween vibes. And I'm really just not excited for the year to be waning. You know, I feel like I haven't made the most of it and I'm having lots of like mixed feelings about disability and what I've been able to achieve and all those sorts of things. I've also been struggling with knitting and what I want to knit and being enthusiastic about knitting. And so what I decided to do was I just sort of was like, meh, fuck it. I've cast on a project that I'm excited about, and it's a cozy, wintry, autumnal vintage project, which includes a lot of the things that first got me excited about knitting. And it's the Victory Beret by Tasha Moss, also known as Tasha Could Make That, who has a YouTube channel and she makes incredible sewing projects, vintage, and is also a knitwear designer. And because I have loads of scrap Shetland yarn left from making my Maywick, I reflected at the end of my last video about I keep coming back to a certain type of project because I love to do it, and so I'm doing something I love, and I'm hoping that's going to firstly reignite my passion for knitting and also hopefully get me excited for the sort of cozy winter season, because frankly I'm dreading it. So the Victory Berry, so I made a swatch in the round. It's a bit, I just sort of improvised. I didn't really know what I was doing when it came to swatching in the round. Mostly because I wanted to check my choice of colours. I have the most of this purple left and I haven't really found a place for it in a project yet, but I think it will work quite nicely as the sort of ground colour of this pattern. And so I had blues and greens and things left. I didn't have a red. This pattern calls for sort of like 2 shades of blue, 2 shades of cream, a green and a red, I think. Oh, no. So a red, a white, a cream, and then 2 shades of blue. So I didn't have a red, so I've swapped mine for green. That's where I'm getting the green from. Yeah, and I just quite like the sort of subtlety of the colours together because the purple is heathered with blues and greens, the blue is heathered with green, and the green is heathered with sort of red, and it kind of ties it all together quite nicely. So I cast on last night when I should have been making daisies or working on my mystery Intarsia project, and I'm doing it magic loop just because I didn't quite have the right, I only had 2.75, I don't know why, I only had like this kind of cheap circular needle in 2.75, I don't have my interchangeables 2.75, and I didn't have any DPNs, I only had 2.5 DPNs, and I thought that might throw my gauge out a bit. Was able to get gauge, so that's good. Yeah, so I'm starting with the rib, as these things usually do, and I'm just really excited to get to work on it, and I haven't felt like that for a project for a while. That does mean I'm back up to 8 works in progress on the go at once, but by the end of the month I'm determined to finish my daisy blouse. I have all the bits ready to go apart from the daisies that I needed this to finish, so I've got 60 more to make, and I reckon that's doable in a day. So I might sort of have a day where I bash out all these daisies. But then the making up might take a bit longer because they've got to be crocheted together and the ribs got to be sewn on. I also have to decide about the buttons. The pattern calls for you to make your own covered buttons. I don't know if I'll have enough yarn to do that, so I might just buy some. Because my stash busting video is a little bit late going up because I ran out of Fridays basically, I've got my days of the week wrong in August. I haven't read any responses to a lot of the questions I asked about the future of stash busting, so I'm excited for those to come in today and see what other people think about the continuation of this project and of this series. I've got some of my own thoughts, I've got some ideas that I'm pretty certain I'm going to try and pursue. I have been thinking my goal is to get to under 100 by the end of the year by any means possible. So that might mean donating things, it might mean selling things, and finishing works in progress would be a good start. But if I finish the daisy blouse, that will be, I think, 7 down, and if I finish my Intarsia blouse, that'll be another 5 down. So that's quite a big chunk in just those 2. And I reckon I can finish those comfortably by the end of the year. And then I'm doing this project that I'm excited about, and then I think I'm going to try and do I'm going to tackle some of the double knit that I have in my stash that I haven't tackled yet. Because you get less meterage per gram, I should be able to use it up quicker. Is the logic. Who knows if it'll actually work like that, but that's where I am now. Let's see what you all say. So it's September the 5th and I've had a little while to think about a lot of the comments I've been getting on the stash busting video you've just seen, which would be July at this point because it went up in August. Yeah, you're a month behind me. And it's been really insightful and thought-provoking. Ooh. And a lot of you have had really pertinent ideas about what I can do. A lot of people have been very supportive about saying just sell things or swap things or donate them. Do what makes you happy. And that is the recurring theme, which is very nice. I appreciate that sort of support. Made me think about why am I not happy with my knitting? And I've realised part of the reason is I like to experiment. I am a person who is very much pattern first, yarn second. I see a pattern, particularly a vintage or a historical pattern, which is a bit wacky, has some strange construction method, and I'm like, I've got to try that. It's got my name written all over it. The yarn is very much secondary to that. It's part of the reason I don't like a big stash, and it's part of the reason I'm not enjoying using up these inspiring yarns. I also think part of it is because I've been so dissatisfied with so many of the projects I'm working on. I keep starting new ones and not finishing anything, and so that doesn't actually take anything off the total, and it doesn't actually make any space in my house because it just moves that yarn from the stash to the work in progress box, bag, whatever, and I have loads of those littering up my house that I sort of flip between and never finish. I mean, I do finish them eventually, but it comes back to something I've noticed about myself generally. I am holding myself to standards that are no longer realistic for where I am now, both in terms of my life, my health, and my work situation. When I think about some of the videos I made previously about like what I knit in a year, for example, the one from 2020, so much stuff, so much incredible, intricate, fancy stuff in that video that I made in 2020. But I had, firstly, nowhere to go. I had a lot of free time. I also was not working as much theatre-wise, YouTube-wise, all the other things I do as sort of sidelines because of COVID. No wonder I can't knit in the way I did in 2020, you know. But also, I've been through a lot since then. So I've been through a hell of a lot since then. So is it any wonder that I'm not producing knitwear at the rate I was in 2020? No, of course not. Because for one thing, I leave the house now. But it's not just the actual things I'm making themselves. It's the sort of way I work has changed. And I'm holding myself to a standard for the process, if you like, that's no longer right for me. You know, yeah, I was at one time in my life the sort of person who had one project on a go at once, sat down and worked solely on that project until it was finished. But I'm a different person now, and my brain has been through a lot, and it can't cope with that. And so I've adapted, and I now prefer to work with lots of little projects on the go at once. But I'm still beating myself up for doing that and holding myself to a standard that was self-imposed to begin with, but also that just isn't right for me anymore. And it's okay. It's okay to let go of that. You know, it's okay to change. It's okay to change the way you do things. I worked with a lady once in a theatre job, and I ended up staying in her house. Theatre's weird. I stayed in her spare room, and there were boxes and boxes and boxes of fabric for patchwork. And I said to her, "Oh, I didn't know you do patchwork." And she went, "Oh, I don't anymore." And I was like, "What do you mean you don't anymore?" And she was like, "Yeah, I did it for about 20 years. It was like my primary sort of sewing hobby was patchwork, and I made all sorts of things. I made patchwork teddy bears, I made patchwork quilts, I did all sorts of cushions and things like that. And then one day I just got bored of it and I stopped doing it." And she said, "I've kept all the stuff just in case I ever feel like taking it up again, but yeah, don't float my boat anymore." And that really stayed with me about, you know, you're allowed to let things go. Things that you were incredibly passionate about and that you were really interested in and spent a lot of time and energy honing your craft and getting good at, you can go, it's not for me anymore, and move on, and that's fine. So maybe I'm not the knitter I once was, and that's okay. And I have to make my peace with that. Camera overheated. So we've moved into the shade. Definitely done a lot of reflecting recently, and I've definitely learned a lot about myself and my knitting as a result of doing this and talking about this. But I don't know if I'm any further forward in terms of knowing what to do. I think I'm just going to be less hard on myself, basically. And I'm going to try and have some more fun. I also think, somebody else pointed this out, which I hadn't considered, I've been really hard on myself about buying new yarn to use up leftovers. But actually, that's a very make do amend thing to do. You would make your coupons go further by adding stripes of leftover yarn in with your new wool. And maybe I can do some things like that. I've been really hard on myself, but maybe if I'm buying new yarn to use up old yarn, it's okay. For example, this is my classic jersey that I've been working on, and I've been doing this random Intarsia technique where I just do these diagonal lines and sort of make it a bit abstract and cubist almost. And this has been really fun, partly because I've always wanted to try this pattern and I'm finally getting around to it, and also because I've had these yarns under my bed since 2020 and the purple one from even earlier, so it's nice to finally give them a use. So it's sort of like scratching my itch to try these vintage patterns using up yarn, but it's also, I'm practicing a different technique with the Intarsia. So I'm enjoying this one a lot more than I thought. However, what I, as always with Stashbusting, I'm a little bit nervous I'm not going to have enough yarn, particularly for the sleeves. I had these ideas of like trying to match the sleeves so that, you know, this bit of the sleeve would be cream and this bit of the sleeve would be grey, but I just don't think I'm going to have enough yarn to do that. So we'll have to see once I've finished. This is the front, the back. But if I buy 1 or 2 balls of wool to use up 5 balls of wool, it's not the end of the world, is it? I'm still putting the wool in my stash to good use. I should be editing 1840s ball videos. I've got one about petticoats that should be going out this Friday, but seeing as it's rained non-stop all through August and summer has finally arrived just in time for September, can't really bring myself to be inside on my laptop. Welcome back to the kitchen. I have a confession to make. Do you remember last month when I sat in this very kitchen and said, but what really is exciting about this month is that we are very, very close now to finishing the daisy blouse. And so next month, it should be finished. Okay, don't be mad at me. I haven't made a single daisy in September. It's one of those things, I just didn't feel like it. I had this idea where I wanted to make a video which was like, how many daisies can I make in one day? And that was a dumb idea because that just doesn't work with my life. It doesn't work with where I live. It doesn't work with my health, all those things. So I've been putting it off like, oh, maybe one day I'll be well enough to work all day. It's not gonna happen, is it? So I've finally kind of realized that coming towards the end of September, and I've decided that instead what I need to do is practice what I preach and just do a little bit every day until I get there. And if that means we don't have a fun, clickable video with an outrageous thumbnail, like, oh, how many daisies can I make in a day? Yeah, who cares, right? So what I have done is I have been able to finish my Victory Beret. This is a design by Tasha Moss, also known as Tasha Could Make That. I love it so much. I'm so pleased with it. That's like the front of it as well. It's just... It's just what I like about knitting. I really, really enjoyed it. It was challenging enough for me in terms of the Fair Isle, bearing in mind I have made a Mary Wallen Yell cardigan, so I'm pretty accomplished at Fair Isle. It's just my sort of thing, this pattern, and it was so exciting to work on. I'll let you in a little secret, I made a few mistakes. I don't know if you can see here this sort of diamond in the middle. Yeah, I forgot that I was supposed to do like the points of the diamonds and a few of the extra stitches, so you can probably see on one like there. It's actually duplicate stitch. Shh. No one will know. In fact, I enjoyed making this one so much. I've actually started another one and I so nearly got to finishing this one. I've literally just got a few more rounds decreasing at the top of the crown to do. Like, I just ran out of time in September and I was like, oh, shall I include it in September's total or shall I save it for October? And I've decided I'm putting it in September. Going rogue here, but this one is a slightly different colour palette. It's a bit more like, I don't know, wintry, I suppose? Snowflakey? I'm not sure. Yeah, I just couldn't help myself. I enjoyed making this so much. I made another one when I should have been making daisies. Now, you might be thinking, who needs two almost identical vintage Fair Isle berets? And it turns out not even I need two vintage Fair Isle berets. So I've decided that what I'm going to do, and actually this was something that quite a few people mentioned in the comments when I was asking for advice about how I go forward with my stash and kind of get through this mental block, is I'm going to give this beret, the white one, I thought it was a bit more wearable than purple and green, which is kind of my taste but might not be yours. I'm going to give that away over on Ko-fi, specifically to my Ko-fi members. Now, you might have seen I did a community post about this. So basically, Ko-fi, without my knowledge, if you like, updated its features so that people can sign up to pay monthly, if you like, in a similar sort of way to Patreon. And I didn't notice this for like a good year or so, and suddenly I was like, oh, the same people always donate to my Ko-fi every month. And it turns out that like they'd set it up that way on purpose. And I suddenly felt like really guilty that I had these people who were supporting me every month and I hadn't even acknowledged it. So I'm trying to use the members feature on Ko-fi a lot more. So now my Ko-fi members, so if you pay monthly on Ko-fi, you get 24-hour exclusive early access to my videos as a thank you for continuing to stick with me. It's just a little sort of sneak peek, a premiere if you like. The videos will still be up and free for everybody the next day. It's just a thank you for those people who are supporting me in that monetary way. But what I do want to do is make some other sort of content available available on Ko-fi, not videos because I do not have the time for that, but maybe some blog posts or some behind the scenes pictures. And also what I want to do is start knitting things and giving them away. So the first one is going to be this hat when it is done. I still haven't really decided how it's going to work, so maybe I'll insert a clip here with more information. So the way that the giveaway works is that I will make a members only post on Ko-fi, and all you have to do is simply leave a comment on that post and I will pick a winner at random to receive the victory beret. The giveaway will run until Friday the 24th of November, at which point I will pick this name at random and I will contact you through Ko-fi to let you know that you've won, and I will organise to send the beret to you. Now let me be very clear, the only way I will contact you is through Ko-fi direct message. Scammers deliberately target YouTube giveaways like this, so if there is somebody replying to you in the comment section on this video, impersonating me, claiming to be me, telling you you've won and asking for your personal information, it is not me, it is a scam. Please be very, very careful about this. The only way I will contact you if you've won is through Ko-fi. And if you do see anything like that happening, please let me know. Please tag me in comments and things so that I'm made aware and I can report it to YouTube and hopefully get the scammer removed. I think that's everything. Let's carry on. But I just wanted to keep you up to date. That's something I'm now doing. And if you're interested and you want to sign up to be a Ko-fi member, there will be a link in the video description. You can also still just use Ko-fi as a tip jar, as it has always been. I know a lot of people have also requested a Patreon because that's the platform they prefer to use. I'm working on it, okay? It's just a little bit more complicated with me being in the UK. I have to fill in some forms and stuff, and I just haven't got round to getting my head around it yet. So I am working on it. It will happen at some point, but in the meantime, I am just continuing to use Ko-fi for the time being. So the thing with these Fair Isle berets is they didn't use up an enormous amount of yarn, and obviously they use lots of different little bits. So shall we see how much I've actually managed to tick off the stash in September, given that I didn't do what I said I was going to do and finish the daisy blouse. So when I finished this hat, I totted it all up and worked out that this hat is one 50-gram skein of yarn down. So I'm going to assume that the white and blue one is also one, but I do need to go through and update my Ravelry stash to see how much I've got left of the colours. For example, I know there's a lot less of this and a lot less of the creamy white left as well. For your sake, let's just call it 2 this month. Victory version 2. Which brings us at the end of September, we were at 138 50-gram skeins and we are now at 136 50-gram skeins. 136. So let's have a look and see what we've actually used. So it was 39 grams and it is now 25. So, 24. What did I say? 39, so that's 15 grams down. Apparently had 42 grams of that and I've now got 10 left, so I've used 32. What other colours even did I use? No, I think this is the grey I used. So I have 10 grams of that left and I had originally 17, so I've used 7 grams of that. I know I've only got a very little bit of the fawn left. Oh, there was 9 grams of that and there's now 2, so we've used 7. Is that all the colours I used? Oh, the purple. Oh, I used that up entirely. Purple heather, there it is. 5 grams, and we used 5 grams. Woohoo! So 5, 15 is 20, 27, 34, and 32. So we've actually used 6, more than one for version 2. But I like to even out the rounding every now and again. So that's good. So that's 2 balls of yarn down in September. As for October, it is my intention to carry on with the daisy blouse. Like I say, I'm going to have to do it a little bit at a time and I just have to cope with that. I also want to carry on working on a little bit at a time my Intarsia blouse, which I haven't worked on at all this month either. But also it's approaching gift knitting season and there are some people in my life that I would like to knit for. I've got some babies in my life now, you know, I would like to make them something handmade because I think that's such a special sort of connection. I also want to go through my Ravelry favourites. After that Stashbusting July video where I asked for the feedback, I went through and just favourited a load of stuff that I really liked on Ravelry, and I spent a little bit of time sort of thinking about the yarn that I do have in my stash and could I possibly make any of those patterns that I'm excited about from my stash yarn. There's not a lot that match up, but there are a few, so I might dive back into those and see where that takes me. I'm feeling much better about it, honestly. I'm too hard on myself. I know I am. I always am in everything that I do. And this entire thing is completely arbitrary. It's entirely made up by me. I'm putting my pressure on myself, but I do find that helpful in some ways. And so if I have to have a break, if I have to buy new yarn, the battery's dying, so I have to be quick. Basically, if I have to buy new yarn and that keeps me on the straight and narrow for a little bit longer, so be it, I'll do it. But I'm feeling much better about things going into October. I will leave you now with the reveal of my finished object, the only one for September.
A moment in the dark with you, a cozy spot for only two. The light of love comes shining through in a moment in the dark. Although I try all through the day, the words that I'm afraid to say, tonight my heart will find the way in a moment in the dark.